Global urbanization is an important phenomenon going on in our age. Our cities are getting more and more complex, bigger and bigger, and more crowded. When I'm on the bus, I used to listen to online rap music. While I'm TED, I used to tweet. While I'm coming back home, I used to call my friends all the way back. We can define modern city by two different layers. There is one layer, which is the physical layer, made by everything you can see. There are the streets, the buildings, the station, the university, etc. On the top of the physical layer, there is another layer, made by billions of digital traces, which evolves on the top of the physical layer, second after second. We can definitely define cities as a very complex system, an infinitely complex system. How can we use all these digital traces that we create every second to understand and discover something more about the physical layer? Our aim as Urbanscopers is to collect all the digital whispers from the city, or some of them, the useful one, and to turn them into knowledge for the city. As I said, city is an infinitely complex system, but humans has already faced the problem of infinity. There is a microscope that we can use to look at the infinitely small, like cells and atoms in the substances. Then there is the telescope. We can look at the stars and moons and suns. And for the infinitely complex, there is the macroscope. As I said, cities are an infinitely complex system, so we can point our macroscope towards a urban landscape, creating Urbanscope. Urbanscope is a project by Politecnico di Milano, where students and professors and researchers work together to reach our aim, to collect the digital whispers from the city and to turn them into knowledge for the city. But be careful, you don't have to think at the macroscope as something that is physical, made by iron and glass, where you can look inside to the city. It's more a systemic approach. It's a way of seeing, a way of looking at the city as a unique, complex body. To reach our goal, which I repeat, is to collect the digital whispers from the city and to turn them into knowledge for the city, we need to find out the right research questions, to collect the right whispers, to analyze them, and to visualize them, to let them accessible to all of us, the citizens. All these competences are not available in only one person, of course, so when you think about Urbanscope, it's better to think about a transdisciplinary approach, where different experts work together with different backgrounds to collect the whispers from the city and to turn them into knowledge for the city. So there are the management engineers, the data scientists, the computer scientists, the designers, and of course, the urban planners.
On this digital macroscope, we can set different lenses to have different views of the same object, in this case, the city. Each lens captures a certain type of whisper and amplify it to extract knowledge. But knowledge for whom? For the multiple city stakeholders, the mayor, public administration, tourists, of course, and we all, the citizens. Now, we have an object, the city. We have an instrument, the macroscope, with its lenses, and we have stakeholders. What we need now is a portal to let them access the macroscope. Now, we have a digital city, so we need a digital portal. Here it is, Urbanscope website. Here, everyone can have a look about all the stuff that this project is doing and can understand and interact with the different lenses. We are in Italy now, but my friend there is Colombian. and she used to live in Portugal. And we are having a speech in English. So actually, how many languages are spoken in Milan? Are there language communities within our city? That's what the first land, cities, into Milan is about. Well, Italians speak a lot, that's well known. But do they speak only con la mamma, or they call also abroad? Milan is supposed to be an international city. But which are the countries more connected to Milan? To understand it, we can have a look through city and the world lens. According to a recent research made by Milanese, Milan is getting more and more fashion. But which are the hottest locations in our city, and how do they evolve during time? City magnets and top venues is about that. In looking through each lens, you can both exploring the data created by citizens and have a look through the analysis proposed by our team. For example, let's have a look through city and the world lens. This fancy visualization is all about phone calls. We have here in the center the city of Milan with all those colorful bubbles. Each bubble represents a country. Empty bubble, outgoing calls from Milan. Filled bubble, incoming calls to our city. The size of the bubble is, of course, proportional to the number of calls. As you can see here, the biggest bubble are Switzerland, France, and Great Britain up there. It means that Milan is mostly called by those countries. Around the center, we have the rest of the world, all the countries that Milanese calls, divided by continent. As you can see, Europe there occupies a lot of space, of course, due to cultural and geographical reasons. But let's think about North America up there. Don't you think that America, during the last decades, has been influencing a lot our culture? Let's think, for example, about movies or TV shows, music. If you look at that picture, we can see that, at least for the period of analysis, Asia seems more connected to the city of Milan than North America up there. Have you ever wondered?
You can have a lot of questions from this kind of visualizations. And it is possible to answer to all these questions and many, many other in the Explore section of the City and the World lens. This is the Explore section of the City and the World lens. Here, users can interact and play with data in order to find out how the citizens of Milan are connected by mobile phone with the rest of the world. It is a quite funny thing to do during your spare time online instead of watching puppies' videos. You know, puppies are great, but this alluvial diagram is even better. Because this alluvial diagram is able to summarize thousands of millions of data. This is the power of data visualization. Here, you can follow the stream of calls starting from a particular area of Milan to a particular country in the world. It is easy to imagine all these calls starting, for instance, from Villa Pizzone, flying through the air, crossing boundaries, seas, and reach new countries like France, Ukraine, and so on, in order to connect Milan to the rest of the world. All this data, all these whispers, can be easily segmented and analyzed in many different ways in order to solve a lot of questions. For instance, Which is the most called country by millennials? Or which is the most called country during weekend? Or the question I prefer. It could sound a little bit sexy, but it's not. Do men and women are really different in the way they communicate by phone with the rest of the world? It is possible to solve this question by activating the gender filter. Men are blue, and women are red. And we can easily see that Egypt is the most called country by men in Milan. While in the case of female Milanese users, is Ukraine the most called country. Therefore, men and women are really different in the way they communicate with the rest of the world. Women calls to the east, while men are more connected with Africa. Melissa, can you please come here?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, how many times do you call your parents in Colombia?
I think not enough to appear in this diagram.
You need to work harder, Melissa.
Yeah. Maybe I prefer to know the places to go out in Milan, so let's change our lenses. Let's go to city magnets. City magnets track the check-ins of the users performing social media, so pretty much where the people share they go, allowing us to see how the citizens interact with the Urbanscape. In our city magnets, we can also set a time window to see, for example, how certain events impact the city. The largest recent event in Milano in the last couple of years was the Universal Exhibition, Expo, that started in 2015. Before the exhibition, all the check-ins were performed rather in traditional place in the city center. But if we move the time window, we can see that the exhibition place in Rofiera gained protagonists all over the city. We can also filter the purpose of the visitors, so we can see if people are checking restaurants or the entertainment landscape. In this one, we can see that places like the stadium are more important than places in the city center. This and that for food, for example, Italians rather pretty much all over the center of the city. But this is just an aggregation of single locations. So we can also see how top venues in particular perform. For example, if we are inside the categories of the accommodation, for the time of the exhibition, we can see that luxury hotels, like the Hilton, gain some position in the ranking, while more affordable accommodations, like hostels, lost some positions. This gave us a hint about the type of visitors that came into the city during that period of time. These were just two of the lenses of our macroscope, but there are still several to explore, especially with a dynamic system, where not only new question arises, but also the answers changes as the city transforms itself. Essentially, new ways of observing can disclose new things. Like Galileo, who centuries ago took the telescope, an instrument that was conceived mostly for military purposes, and he turned it towards the sky, discovering what? The moons of Jupiter, and mapping the Sea of Fertility and several other craters in the moon. Urbanscope, our macroscope, is an instrument that can allow us to see the city in a different way, and maybe also help us to transform it along with citizen needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.